Founder Wisdom Pod with Ubaldo Criminieri today with us. He's an amazing guy. I've been talking with him over the last couple of minutes, got introduced to one another, co-founder at IIA Healthcare and CMO there as well. He's also chief of staff at another very cool space company, which we're going to talk about. He's all about diversity as well. That's going to be another topic of the day, and podcasting. So lots of overlap between me and Ubaldo. He is originally from Argentina. I've been spending some good time there. So another overlap. We might talk about that too. Ubaldo, say hello to I was about to say my first million podcast, which is my favorite podcast. But yeah, the Founder Wisdom podcast crowd. Tell us a bit more about yourself and your companies.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Yeah, we were talking, I was reminiscing about being an entrepreneur. Are we talking about being an entrepreneur? And, it's for me, it's sort of always been in the blood. And it really started back in, like around 2009, 2010, when I started a company, It was a video audio production company with a partner. And we were interviewing technology executives from all over Colorado. And it was such a cool opportunity and such a cool thing to do, because not only did I learn sort of the basics of podcasting, what would become podcasting, right? But you get to have these amazing conversations with people who you might not normally get to talk to.
Right.
And for me, that became how I learned. I love reading books, more fiction than nonfiction, and business books. I'm just not into that. But I love talking to people. And so that's what that became for me. And but I also learned, how to lead, how to run a business, how to treat your employees, right? All those sorts of things that led me into starting my first kind of real company, if you will, with partners and money in 2016. And that has evolved into what is now IIA Healthcare, which is, we're just trying to help healthcare organizations hire better, the higher quality, that you can bring through your hiring process, the higher quality of care you're going to bring to your communities, and the patients you serve, right? So it's a very, very important mission for us. We have some really exciting news about that coming out soon. But it's something that we've pivoted towards because, healthcare, they need to hire. End of story. And it's just very important, right? And then also, and then I'm a space nerd, man. I'm a Trekkie, live long and prosper. I mean, I love space, and I had an opportunity to start working with this organization called CIS Lunar Industries. You can see it right here. And they are essentially, if you think of steel mills, right? The steel mills of the past, Andrew Carnegie, well, they're the steel mills of the future. They're building space foundries to take, recyclable metal materials and turn them into building materials and propellant fuel, so that we can live and work in space, and we don't have to spend the inordinate amount of money it takes to take resources from Earth into space. We can just create them in space and on the moon. And so that then helps us to truly live and work and expand out into the universe as a human race. And that to me is just crazy exciting stuff.
It is. It's a moonshot. I love moonshots. Let's start with the pod, though. It was called Choose Inclusion. You won an honorary Webby Award, which is kind of cool. Tell us a bit more about the pod and what you learned about inclusion and diversity during that podcast.
Yeah, that was a really special one because, it was three of us who came together based off of a discussion around diversity and inclusion and the struggles that each of us were having in our different roles to understand and bring those concepts to the organizations we were working for. And so again, it started out as, hey, we want to go interview people like us who are having the same struggles in their organizations in the hopes that we can all help each other, and take some tips and tricks and ideas back to our organizations, because oftentimes people in a DEI role, they're the only ones, responsible for that in their company. So it's like everything is on their shoulders. What was cool about Choose Inclusion, though, was it morphed into this ability and opportunity for us to talk to the Black community after George Floyd's murder here in the US, and just to sit and listen and learn from a community of people who have historically been not given the same opportunities as other communities in the US, and who have just been oppressed and just haven't had the same experience. And it really, like, that was such an explosion of learning for the three of us. And we were like, we have this platform, we want to give it to them to use it so that they can tell their story, so that other people can understand, because otherwise you don't understand what a community of people who have been underrepresented and oppressed for so long, what they're going through. You can't ever understand it unless you sit and listen. And that's that particular series within the podcast is what we had. We got a Webby Award honoree nomination for that. And it was just life-changing. It was really amazing opportunity, and something that when we stopped doing that podcast for lots of reasons, it was a great place to end it,
Interesting. Tell us about some of these striking stories you've heard on the pod. Tell us about trends that you've seen, some problems that the Black community has been facing recurrently over the next few years, and finish off by telling us about the potential solutions you could come up with.
Oof. Those are three amazing questions. I wish we had more time. It's funny. It's the stories were so vast. I mean, we talked to people from every different walk of life. We talked to young kids who experience racism in school. We talked to people who knew George Floyd, and what that one chance experience with George Floyd did for them and how it impacted them. And we talked to mayors and judges and chefs. And the trend line is that most of them were just never given the chance to, or they had to work a million times harder than the other person, because no one believed them. No one thought they could do it, right? No one thought they had the ability to do it. They were never given the same educational opportunities. I mean, one of the striking things I learned was a place that I grew up in Kansas City. They had red line districts, which essentially Black people weren't allowed to buy a home within these districts. And realtors knew that, mortgage companies knew that, and they all had codes for this sort of thing, like, oh, they can't buy here. Like, that's mind-blowing. And that's stuff that existed well into the late 1900s. It wasn't like this was 200 years ago. And so those are the trend lines, that there has been this systematic line of oppression towards one group in particular, that affects everybody, no matter who you are, no matter, even if you were born into money as a Black person, you still ran into these things. And so that's really what was troubling and eye-opening to us. And as far as solutions, I mean, I think the biggest thing solution-wise is, one, you have to have people in your corner, right? So there have to be people who are willing to listen to your story, so that they can figure out how they can use their privilege to help you. And so solutions are giving people more of a voice and a place where their stories can be heard and appreciated and learned from, so that so that then the people who actually can come up with solutions for them can do that and use their power and privilege to do that for them. But oftentimes their voice doesn't get heard, and that's that's hard. That's hard. It's like you never feel like you can gain any kind of momentum or footing in a world where your voice is never heard.
Right. Low-hanging fruit communities. So like, let's say Black entrepreneurs communities could be good, but I also see this as a short-term solution that doesn't scale much, because then the racist folks will be like, oh, now they build communities and
Right. Right.
then comes to my mind like very successful Black entrepreneurs, Jay-Z, for example. It's like, yeah, mega props to him, like, because he did it like in a swimming backwards in the river, kind of.
Yeah.
Then the third thought was, exist folks like you and I that don't give a shit about color, or if we do, it's to support these folks. If anything, me, I'm all about tough love, and I'm about mentoring any folks that come to me. I think this content serves well to any types of these folks. And the last thing came that, for example, for this podcast, right, I have a fully scalable system to get a bunch of podcast guests, for example. I have the privilege of not being white, right? So I won't get refusal for that reason. But let's say that I would coach a Black entrepreneur to either get clients or start his podcast and scale it and make money out of it.
Yeah.
Then what if they get, they send 1 million email during the year, 20 will say yes, and maybe 5 racist pricks will say no out of 20. They still have 15 yes. What about that, and that scales. So what do you think about that? Because to me, it seems like the lowest hanging fruit that they can take advantage of, or kind of like jump on the opportunity until the racism kind of calms itself down. Because I think racism doesn't scale, right? It's mostly like testosterone. It burns super fast, and it's like anger. Meaning that like with time, let's say that, well, I mean, that's my own biased opinion, but I think it reduces by, let's say, 1% every year. Especially when it comes to business and the Silicon Valley way of doing things, which is like scaled. I don't care your color, like whoever you are, if the color is money, is green. And we could attach to that like possibly trees and being sustainable and all of that. So what do you have to say on all of these contrarian viewpoints of mine?
No, I listen, I think it's great, because within the solution, it's really one, what is it that those of us with privilege, what are we good at, right? And how can we lean into that to help people? But we also have to make the choice to help people. And so it's a choice. There's a lot of learning and introspection that has to go on, that each of us has to do to even want to even begin to look outside of ourselves, outside of our in-groups, right? And outside of our small community, to say that we're going to do everything we can to help all these people over here. And that's a hard thing to do. I've done bias trainings, and I've tried to help people understand from more of a neuroscience perspective how our brains fundamentally work and how our bodies work as it relates to bias. Because oftentimes, once you have that awareness of how your particular brain works, then you can start to choose intentionally better behaviors. You don't get rid of the biases, but you can understand where they came from. You can realize that they didn't come from a true place of fact-based anything. A lot of times there are good biases, there's also bad biases. And so where do those bad biases start, and how can I then act against those when they come up? So all that to say, like, I don't know, there isn't a wrong answer. I don't think there's no wrong answer to coming up with solutions to help. It's really just leaning into your strengths and how you can focus those strengths to help a group of people who, again, never got a chance.
Right.
And like, so it's a lot of introspection, it's a lot of learning constantly, it's a lot of listening. But the more and more, to your point, the more and more of us who come together, and it seems like we're moving in that direction, right? That eventually this will kind of, you'll get the snowball effect. And I think we've seen the impact of that over the last few years.
Right.
George Floyd, COVID, there have been these waves of movement, where there have been some successes. And so we just need to continue doing that.
Right, I agree. I started out racist, most probably like most kids, and I'm probably still am racist to some degree. I'm still biased. But if I look back at my life, I think a couple of elements helped me not being racist or diminishing the bias, if you want. Travel, then the open source Silicon Valley mindset, very liberal, almost ultra liberal. Psychedelics, to open my mind, spirituality,
Sure.
meditation,
Yeah.
and psychedelics. I was talking with two entrepreneurs yesterday about that, and that's unstoppable as well. And I do think, yeah, diversity and inclusion is unstoppable too. It's like we tipped, and I don't think it's going to stop. Snowball effect. We only have a couple of minutes left, so I want to make sure we speak about space as well, which is like
Yeah.
a passion of both of us. We're both space nerds.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about the company in itself. I mean, it seems like rocket science to kind of melt steel or minerals that you would find on other planets or the moon or Mars and
Yeah.
build stuff. Yet it seems like an essential piece to build colonies out there. What's the thesis there?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, that's right now it costs so much money, as you can imagine, mainly because of mass, right? And weight of these things, to take building materials and raw materials from here up there because of gravity is a lot. And so the cool thing is, once you figure out how to control and manipulate metal, especially when it's melted down in zero gravity, which this team has figured out using electromagnetics. Like it's like it's like right out of a science fiction movie, but it's real. And if you can control it and then direct it into a mold to create anything from building rods to sheet metal to wire to, again, metal propellant for electric propulsion engines, then you start to really visualize this industrial economy in space, where we've got space stations, and one of the big discussions right now is there's so much space debris, old satellites, basically trash, right, orbiting the Earth. And that makes it dangerous for us to go to space, to be in space. So what if we could take that debris, melt it down, and turn it into something useful again? That's our whole thesis. That's the part one of our thesis is, hey, can we help clean up the space debris problem? Then create building materials, raw materials, and propellant in space, so we're not spending a ton of money to bring it up there. And then now we can go even further out, because we're able to build structures in space more readily. Now we're on the moon, and now we're able to take regolith with the materials, these raw materials on the moon, and melt those down and turn those into building materials. So now we're creating structures on the moon so that we can live there and work there. It's this effect goes out however far we want to go now. But you got to have that key kind of technology and those key building blocks to enable that sort of economy to exist. And that's really where CIS Lunar Industries, as well as several other companies who are working together as sort of a coalition to make that happen. Because you need people to go out, and you need robots and vehicles to go get debris and bring it. You need a space station to host a space foundry, which is what we've built. And you need people to transport raw materials and finished materials. And so all of a sudden now you have this working economy that's we see functioning fully, within the next 10-ish years.
Love it.
And that's amazing.
Yeah, it's like if the ingredients weren't there, were all there in space, then my brain was wondering, like with the oscillating temperature, the mega difference between the temperature, could we even have a natural oven, of like bringing these ingredients and then melting them? But then the question is, why wouldn't they melt back again?
Yeah.
Because the goal is like full sustainability, like this bots that can build something from a distance without requiring like more external equipment being provided to it. So
Yeah.
how do you build that?
Yeah. Well, so now that's getting beyond me. I am certainly not the technical person.
What's your role there, like chief of staff? That's like super
Yeah, chief of
interesting.
staff.
So
So
tell us
I'm
a bit more.
mostly, based about on my background, I'm helping a lot with talent strategy. So as they grow, I'm helping them, interview and hire the right people to join the team, and then some communications, PR, marketing stuff. So it's there's kind of a lot underneath that umbrella of a title, but yeah, to back to your original question about the tech, that's what we're working to figure out. And what's beautiful about the space industry, about NASA, about Space Force, you know the International Space Station, National Laboratory, for example, all of these have programs specifically built to help companies with ideas like this bring those to reality and figure out how to do everything you're talking about, from temperature, radiation issues, zero gravity, all of that stuff. There's amazing programs that are out there that companies can apply for, get awards for, and go and do and go make it. That's how we came to be. It was through a NASA grant. So the beauty of it is there are supportive programs and technologies and people out there who want to see this stuff become a reality, and they will usually do whatever they can to help. So it's an incredible industry. The space industry is really changed, I think, in the last 5 years, and more people, speaking of diversity, more and more people who don't have an engineering background can get into the space industry now, because they need that diversity. They need people from sales, marketing, HR, you name it, backgrounds to come in and help the space industry grow. So it's a great time to be a part of it.
Exciting times for sure.
Yeah.
Revival of the industry.
Yeah.
And that fuels nicely into my next question. What's next for Ubaldo, that young Argentinian kid that is now working at a space company?
Oh, I mean, man, I always tell my wife I'd love to live in space. I don't think she would come with me, but that, at least maybe go and work in space. Something like that. I think also selfishly, because of this work in the space industry, I've been able to connect with a lot of the Star Trek community, which selfishly for me, like, that's just, I love it. Like, and I've gotten to meet a lot of the actors, and really start to get to know that family. And so yeah, I want to talk to more of them. I want to figure out also how to bridge the gap between science fiction and reality. How do we get more people on Earth to understand what it is that we're doing up there and why we're doing it? So that's next for me. And also with IIA Healthcare, again, it's such a critical time right now for the healthcare system, especially coming out of COVID, and to be able to make it easier for healthcare organizations to find the right people to come in and be a part of their team to deliver quality care, just seems like an amazing mission that I love being a part of. And we're going to fight every which way to make sure that we are really a great solution for that.
Love it. Where can people find out more about you and your companies?
Oh, okay. So www.iiahealthcare.com, and then space is www.CIS Lunar Industries.com. Check it out. Both, yeah, it's fun to be a part of some really dynamic and fascinating industries, and the people I get to meet and talk to are just incredible. So check us out.